So we are on 3, 2, 1. This is Dean with the Two Party Podcast. I'm here with Bernardo De La Vega. I think I said that right.
Yes.
All right. And so we are here today. We're going to talk a little bit, first off, about who he is. And we're going to talk about basically some of the things that he's done in his career and some of the things that maybe could benefit our audience through his experience. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you. Kind of tell us about yourself, Bernardo. Go ahead.
My name is Bernardo. I am based in Miami. I am a serial entrepreneur. I started as, working in financial service consulting for a while. After a while, I was like, I don't want to do the 9-to-5 job anymore. I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that. Yep. I got into internet marketing. I got pretty good at Facebook ads and Google ads. Then I started my own company on Amazon, which was a beauty company. And grew that to $33 million in sales per year in about 2.5 years. So did really well with that. Eventually sold the company. And then I started another one, a food meeting kitchen appliance company, which I sold 3 months ago. And then now working on my latest project, which is Fiesta App, which is a tech company, which is basically what we call TikTok for podcasts.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Fiesta is basically the easiest way to record and promote your podcast. So instead of using Zoom or Squadcast or any of these other Zencasts or any of these other softwares, you would use Fiesta to record the podcast. One of the cool features that we have is there's a highlight button. So every time somebody says something really interesting, you press a highlight button and it grabs the last 1 minute of the recording. So then at the end of the recording, you have like a 30-40 minute recording. And then, 4 or 5 1-minute video clips, which are then ready to go. You add a caption and a subtitle, and then you can post them on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. So really helps you sort of promote the podcast. And then, and obviously we are, we're in video, but we have the app component. I can show you. It looks like this, where it's literally TikTok for podcasts of these like 30-second clips.
Okay.
So that kind of stuff. So
That's
people
cool.
who are using the platform can then post the video clips, and therefore solves the issue of one sort of promoting the podcast, but on the user side, there's solving the issue of the discoverability.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very cool. So it kind of at the end of the day, it kind of gives you the interaction with an audience in order to grab their attention. Right. It makes it easier from the podcast side of things to, like you said, highlight. I mean, that's a really good feature that a lot of these platforms and software don't have, where you can literally grab a sound bite and be able to highlight that sound bite and make it into basically a marketable ad for your podcast.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's
Very
the thing.
cool.
So there's other apps that do that, but most of them just do audiograms, right? Because you're grabbing the audio. And the problem with the audiograms or like a sound bite is those don't do well on social, right? Mm-hmm. So people will, if you're on LinkedIn or any Facebook, Twitter, etc. If you see that on your newsfeed, you'll just scroll right by it because you're on a newsfeed and everything's very visual, right? So it's it's really important that it's the videos that do really well, and therefore what we're doing, and then obviously there's this whole social component, but it's a really cool tool to like record your podcast. It makes better than anything else out there, and then on top of that, there's a social network that we're going to be building as well.
Very cool. That is, I look forward to seeing that. Are you guys you're still developing this and working the kinks out, or have you already launched it?
Well, we launched it last week. We could say we're a little bit of a beta launch.
Okay.
We've had sort of a great success with some of the early beta users who are certainly using it. But there are some things that right away people are like, oh wow, this is awesome, but it'd be really cool if it had this and this, and we're like, okay, yeah. So
well, as on the developing side and kind of the research and development, the R&D of it. I mean, this is the moment that's most important, is that you're getting that feedback. Really, it's more important to get the feedback than to just kind of hey, we put an app out and ignore it. So this is really the important, crucial time to get the feedback to make the app better and make it what you want it to be. Correct?
Yep, exactly. Certainly. And so, we're doing sort of a lot of things, but yeah, it is live and we already have are, some early users, and they're really loving the platform for sure. Mm-hmm.
So where can some of our audience, or maybe some of the other podcasters that listen to my show, where can they find this? Is it on Google Play, Apple? What is the main platforms they can find this?
So to record the podcast, they would it's browser enabled, right? So it's just on with your computer. So you just go to the website, fiesta.app. So just like, for example, there's Squadcast and Zencaster.
Yep.
Just like that. So it works on Google Chrome.
Okay.
So Zoom is an application. Those are, browser enabled. So ours is browser enabled. And then on top of that, we have the iOS app and the Android app. And those, if you just go to the Apple Store or the Android, the Google Play Store, and you just type in Fiesta Podcast, you'll find it there. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And so it's going to work. So for example, I'm always in the studio recording, but it would work if I wanted to go on the fly and go get an interview with somebody. I could download it to my phone and go use the app itself right now on my phone mobile.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So what are some other things? I was like I said, I like to stalk my guests a little bit, and I kind of stalked your profile a little bit. And you have self-improvement, and obviously you've done business and entrepreneurship. You're doing great for yourself, and obviously with the app technology. What I caught on there was education and some self-improvement stuff. What can you tell us about your background in education and self-improvement?
Yeah, well, in terms of sort of like self-improvement, obviously when you're an entrepreneur, there's a lot of sort of like, self-improvement and development. But, to me, what I would say is that, as we're going through this process, of like entrepreneurship, right? One thing I'm very big on is really acquiring special skills and definitely like pivoting, right? Like, so I have a podcast and it's called The Next Big Pivot, right? And I'm a big fan of the word pivoting because so my first company was a beauty company. It was mostly on Amazon and we did really well with that. But, one of the things I didn't like is like, okay, it's just on Amazon. It was hard for us to, like start selling retail because a lot of the retailers were like, well, like now you're competing against these massive big brands that'll sell, cream or shampoo for $12. So you need to sell it to us at like $3.50. So we're like, well, there's no margins there,
no
right?
Margin there.
Yeah. So because they're doing these massive volumes, and again, like lower price items. And so as I was looking at it, I really like the food, meat, and kitchen appliance space. And sometimes people are like, how'd you go from beauty to a food, meat, and kitchen appliance? And I was like, well, one, it's e-commerce. And two, I had the expertise of selling on Amazon. And then with that second company, I developed the app because we had an app for the food, meat, and kitchen appliance company, which is the #1 kitchen appliance app on the market. So definitely something, that was very, sort of like interesting there. But the whole thing is like, at one point, I wasn't so excited about selling another retinol cream or another lavender oil.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
You get burnt out on things.
Yeah.
So I've done construction like 27 years on and off. And I say on and off because I've jumped out of it to do other career options. I went and got my degree for computer engineering. I've done so many different things, but I always find myself interweaved with construction somehow, some way. I own a company now. I'm a general contractor. I'm back in construction. At the same time, I do the talk show. At the same time, I have other hobbies and avenues I do. But it's like you said, I could care less about swinging another hammer today. I'm at that point. I always call it my 7-year itch. Where about 7 years into something, I get burnt out on it. I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, as an entrepreneur, and that's, exactly to what you said, as an entrepreneur, if at one point you feel like, man, like I have to do this because I have to do this, then, I mean, that's fine. But then it feels kind of like a job, right? Because you're like, you have to do it and you're not enjoying it. And, to me, the big thing about sort of being an entrepreneur and with that self-development is finding, acquiring new skills and really going after the things that you absolutely love to do. And if certain things make you unhappy, then you're going to have to take the risk to say like, listen, this is making me unhappy. Let me pivot into something else, where I think, there's a really big opportunity there, but that is, something that looks really exciting. And to me, the biggest thing was, this really big pivot from like e-commerce to tech. Right. When I first started with sort of e-commerce, I got pretty good at it. So I'm still very good at e-commerce. But it's just, I pivoted into tech, and I think, tech is just very, very exciting. And definitely think, obviously, with everything that's going on, technology is the future. And obviously, people are doing extremely, extremely well with e-commerce. It's just, for me, at one point, I was like, I didn't feel there was this really like massive passion to sell one more product of something, but I had this massive passion to go and build a new platform or a new app that just really was kind of like game changing. In this case, we feel TikTok for podcasts is pretty game changing. Again, as long as we execute that right. So but the biggest thing in my journey has been pivoting, and within that pivoting, acquiring new skills, and within that acquiring new skills, being able to okay, here's what I know, here's what I don't know. But if I go into this, I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to learn this in the process. So definitely be sort of constantly learning. And I think, sometimes entrepreneurs are like, well, this is my expertise, I'm just going to stay in this lane.
Right.
The problem is there's a great thing about, staying in your expertise. The problem is you might, at one point, your passion for what you're doing might run out, or you're just like, listen, I've been doing this for so long, and it's just like the industry, especially with everything that's been going on, your industry, of like you're in the event industry or in the restaurant industry, your industry might be having a really, really hard time, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting that you bring that up. And also, I'm big on knowledge. I guess I'm kind of a geek that way. I enjoy learning new things. I enjoy a learning curve sometimes. Sometimes it's just having a challenge. And so it's kind of like what you said, going from e-commerce, going into tech. There's a learning curve there. So it takes you from an element where you're, like you said, you could be I could be doing construction forever and be complacent in the fact that I know construction up and down. I can build something from the ground up all day long. But for me, it's more exciting, more challenging when I actually challenge myself to learn something new. And even with construction, like I said, I've stepped out of it a few years and then I stepped right back into it. But each time I do, things change. Like, for example, back 80s and 90s, construction was really based on, tape measure estimates and going to the job, hammer nail, and doing the physical work. Whereas nowadays you have all these software tools, you have all this technology, you have, instead of a tape measure, you can use a laser measuring device. So there's just all these things that change. So each time I came back, there was a learning curve. And so I would learn the new systems, and then I would apply that to my business and offer that to the client. And it's kind of the same here. I mean, like you say, you get bored with something, you're kind of tired of doing it. You're good at it, but you're just you can keep doing it to make a profit, which is what we're all doing business for. Or you could take, and challenge yourself to learn something new, like you're doing here with the app. You're taking on something that's now a new enterprise for you, and something that you're excited, and now you become more passionate about things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So where do you hope to see this app go? And are you planning on working on, is there other development apps you're trying to work on? I mean, do you guys have plans for other ones, or is this the main focus right now?
Yeah, this is the main focus, as it's a massive effort. So definitely just, fully focus on this for now. Mm-hmm.
What does it take, just for our audience? I hear about app developers all the time. I have a lot of friends, and when I went to first school, computer engineering, we did a little bit of coding, but very basic. Kind of explain to the audience what it takes to build an app. If you could, maybe just kind of give us what the framework of that looks like.
Yeah, certainly. So to build an app, one is there's a few components, but one is you start with kind of like the idea, right? Of what you want to do the app, and then throughout that there's a few sort of steps that you need to do. But if you start with the idea, then the first thing you want to do is do the design, right? So you can use tools like Sketch or Figma. So before you start coding, I would say you have the idea and you do the design, because there's definitely some apps out there where you can like create this like design where you can kind of click on this button or this button, and so there's zero coding involved, and so it's just a little like a prototype of the app that obviously there's no tech involved. It's just design, but it allows you to click on this button, this button. So once you do the design, you want to show it to some people and be like, hey, listen, if there was an app that did this, what do you think that would this be something that you would use? And obviously you want to show it to your target market. If you show it to friends and family, they'll probably be like, yeah, this is great. right? But if they're not your target market, then so that's what I would say. Idea, then design. Then if you have people that are like, yeah, this sounds really good, then you want to think of the business model, right? Is there a business model there, or are people saying this is great, but there's really no way to make money, right? Or you're only going to make money once you have 5 million users, like a Twitter or like a Facebook or like an Instagram. And if you're going that route, well, you better be a founder that has started companies before, because you're going to need to raise a whole lot of money. And so if you never built an app before, do not launch a company where the business model do not try to build an app where the business model is not very clear. You need to be able to say, okay, if we launch this, are we going to start making very soon? Otherwise, guaranteed you're going to run out of money, and it's not going to go well. So that's what I would say. And then once you've done all those things, idea is good, design is good, business model is there's sort of clear. Then you start sort of developing the app, and you want to create what's called an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. And based on that, you get some feedback, and you want to test it as fast as possible and put it in the hands of your customers. Probably things are breaking at the beginning. People are like, this is great, but your app kind of it's not very good. Like this happens, and that's normal.
Work the bugs out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So those would be the 4 steps that I would say on how to build an app.
Okay, very cool, very cool. Now, how long have you guys been working to develop Fiesta App?
So that's a pretty interesting story, because, and that's why also my podcast is called The Next Big Pivot, is because we pivoted already twice. So this is the 3rd idea. Okay. So I don't know if you know some of the cool stories, but like for example, YouTube started as a hookup app. It used to be Tune In, Tune Out. And
I've heard that.
And then Instagram started as Bourbon, and it used to be a check-in app. And then Kevin Systrom turned it into there's a lot of check-in apps. Let's do this. Yeah. This new functionality that instead of spending 20 minutes on Photoshop, in 1 second it'll make your pictures look nice. So that was sort of Instagram. And Slack, which is now super popular. These guys were doing gaming, and they were kind of like okay, but then they developed this internal messaging system, which really they're like, oh, maybe and then one of the guys left. And then he asked to use this internal messaging system, and long story short, it became this massive messaging sort of platform that is now over $10 billion. But they started as that. So for us, for Fiesta, we launched in February, but it was like an improved version of Eventbrite, because we felt like, at least because I live in Miami, that there was no real place that would tell you where to go, like if you're going to happy hour or like nightclub, because you get to Miami and you can go to Google and there's a whole lot of places, but you just don't know based on what kind of like music you like, what kind of crowd you're looking for, all sorts of things. And sort of Google is not very helpful. Google will usually tell you, here are the top 3 or 5 clubs, and there's just so much going on. And this is still a problem in all the big cities, right? You get to the city, and it's hard to find, okay, where do I go? And so to me, there's a really big opportunity there that Eventbrite's not really fixing. And so I wanted to fix this problem, but then COVID hit, and then every single event is canceled. Absolutely every single event is canceled. And we're like, uh-oh. So we then pivoted into virtual events.
Right.
And so for virtual events, what we did was it was like Eventbrite meets Zoom. So that was the second idea. And that was going well, but people were like, wow, this is great. But can I fit 80 people? Can I fit 150 people? And you need this massive infrastructure. So Zoom is great.
You've got to have a serious server and network that can handle the stability. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So our platform works. Fiesta works really, really well with like up to 20 people, right?
Yeah.
And it's, there's other platforms, like I said, Squadcast and Zencaster also, up to like 6 or 8 people work really well. But when you hit a certain number of scale, you need this massive infrastructure, and it's a whole different sort of like setup. And people are like, can you do breakout rooms? So we just realized it was going to take us a long time to get there. And so we pivoted, and because we're like, wait a minute, we have all this functionality, and people are already started to do interviews on our platform. And I was like, okay, what if we do TikTok for podcasts? So now we don't need to worry about, do we fit 80 or 100 people? We have really good video conferencing. we have an app that already has a video news feed. You can create a sort of event. You have all these, we have a short clip already, a component to it. We just need to switch it to, short clips created from the podcast. And so that's what, it turned into. So long story short was, like a similar version to Eventbrite, then virtual events, Eventbrite meets Zoom, and now TikTok for podcasts. And that's what, the story behind Fiesta has been.
Very cool.
So definitely some major pivoting there.
Very cool. Very cool. And it's interesting. You mentioned like you guys are able to sustain like 20 people, and, and it's very uncommon that you're going to have a podcast with say 20 people, but the fact that you offer it above other platforms, and you offer something that, let's say I wanted to have 20 people on, or let's say I just wanted to have 10 people on and just kind of have a big group podcast with more than 6 or 8. It's nice to know there's a platform out there that can actually do that and handle it.
Yep.
For sure. And what are some of the other features we can expect in the Fiesta app, other than what we've just discussed? Are you guys still kind of developing and working on that as we go?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do a lot of things. I mean, one of the things also is, like add like also be a hosting platform. So then it'll also replace whether you use Libsyn, Buzzsprout, Simplecast, like what do you use to host your podcast?
Lately I've been using Zoom. It's been more stable. My network I've been having issues with, but we use Anchor, we use Soundtrap, we use a bunch of different podcast platforms. It really depends on what who I'm engaging that day and what I'm trying to get. If I'm recording audio, if I'm recording video, kind of depends on what format I want to use.
But to host your podcast, in other words, like the platform that then like you put your podcast on there and then it distributes to Apple Podcasts and Google, like Google Podcasts.
Mainly right now, I think Anchor, we do it via Anchor, and then like iHeart and Pandora, we have to directly deal with them.
Okay.
And so there's a few other ones as well that we kind of have to deal directly with, but Anchor kind of does everything as far as distribution. Now, while it's a good platform as far as that goes, just all in one, because it kind of it touches on basically, it just drops your podcast on almost every platform by itself. It doesn't hit a lot. There's a few that it misses. And so I have to go and I'll manually have to upload to certain other places too. Yeah,
certainly. So that's the thing. So the hosting. So in other words, like you create the podcast and then within the same platform, you'll be able to like send it directly. Because right now you can't on Fiesta, but later on you'll be able to send it directly to Apple Podcasts.
So it'll automatically distribute just like
exactly. That. Yeah. So then you don't have to put it on. Again, like either usually the common ones are Simplecast or Buzzsprout or Anchor also does that. And like Libsyn. So that's the next thing that we're working on.
Very cool. Yeah, I can tell you right now, that's a lifesaver as far as like, I already spend like today, for a prime example, I've been in here since 10 o'clock. So from 10 o'clock till 3 o'clock, I will literally be in the studio. While I'm in here, even talking to you, I've got stuff uploading, I've got stuff editing, I've got music playing in the background that's also getting filtered out, and I'm transitioning stuff. So it's like, if I were having to spend more time on distribution, I would never leave the studio. And while I have assistants helping with some of it, a lot of it's, my show, my time. And so if you guys in the future get that app to be able to be kind of like, for lack of a better example, I guess Anchor is just where literally I can upload my podcast to you or do a live feed to your podcast or your app, and it literally just distribute it for me. That would make my life so easy. I mean, that right there is where they say, just make it rain, they like send the money out. Because if I have a platform that's literally allowing me to do that, and it saves me, for me, time is money. And so at the end of the day, running a company and doing the podcast show like I do, if I have an app that literally will let me distribute everything that I'm uploading immediately, it saves me so much time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Well, I'll tell you what, give the audience a little bit about where they can find the app. Obviously, we discussed that a little bit, but go ahead and hit that. Touch base on where, if there's anything else you need to promote, your website, anything like that, hit that up. Go ahead and drop that and let us know.
Yeah, so you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the best place. LinkedIn DMs. That's the best place to reach me. And of course, like I said, for Fiesta, really cool platform to record and promote your podcast with these short video clips that you can post all over the internet and within the Fiesta website and the app. because we're going to be driving a whole lot of traffic to the website. So your video clips now get a lot of visibility. So we're not only solving the problem for the podcaster, we're solving also a problem for the listener in terms of discoverability, right? So if you're using Fiesta, you really get to take advantage of that. And then again, so that is on our website, fiesta.app. So fiesta.app. That is a website, and we have the mobile app on iOS and Android, Fiesta Podcast. So, and those are also certainly live as well. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I am going to check that out as soon as I get a break between guests today. I'm going to go check that out and try to play around with it, kind of get to learn it. I appreciate having you on here. And like I said before, I'm going to try to get you on in the future so we can dive a little deeper, maybe a few months down the road while the app's out, and then we can come back and discuss what you've learned from it. Right.
Yeah. That would be great.
Perfect. Well, you have a great day, and I will shoot this out to you as soon as we get it edited and ready to upload.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep. Have a great day.